Imagine a book so powerful it shaped empires, inspired art, and guided millions for centuries, so that for 1,000 years, Western Europe, with the exception of the Waldenses, Albigenses, and other bodies pronounced heretics by Rome, knew of no Bible but the Vulgate. For much of Western history, it was the ultimate source of truth, crowning kings and shaping laws. But there was a problem. Most people couldn't read it. Early scriptures were in Greek and Hebrew, then Latin, but local priests and congregations often struggled to have copies. The people were in darkness and beholden to corrupt priests to understand salvation. The message of God's love for mankind was lost in translation, creating a spiritual divide. People longed to hear the sacred words in their own language. The hostility of Jerome to the received text made him necessary to the papacy. The papacy in the Latin world opposed the authority of the Greek Vulgate. Did it not see already this hated Greek Vulgate, long ago translated into Latin, read, preached from, and circulated by those Christians in northern Italy who refused to bow beneath its rule? The Church needed a standard Latin text to compete against the missionaries of the received text and to unify its followers. Existing Latin translations, called the Vetus Latina, Alexandrian texts, were inconsistent and confusing. The Church demanded order, a single, authoritative Bible, but would not accept the Textus Receptus, the pure translations derived from the apostolic texts that were preserved. Jerome then enters the scene, a scholar determined to bridge this divide and create a definitive Latin Bible. Enter Jerome, brilliant, stubborn, and fiercely devoted to the papacy's cause. Born in the Balkans, Jerome mastered Latin, Greek, and even Hebrew. After what he called a spiritual awakening, he dedicated his life to God and scholarship. Jerome had been taught the scriptures by Gregory Nazianzen, who in turn had been at great pains with two other scholars of Caesarea to restore the library of Eusebius in that city. With that library, Jerome was well acquainted. He describes himself as a great admirer of Eusebius. While studying with Gregory, he had translated from Greek into Latin the Chronicle of Eusebius. And let it be remembered, in turn, that Eusebius, in publishing the Bible ordered by Constantine, had incorporated in it the manuscripts of Origen. In 382 AD, Pope Damasus tasked Jerome with revising the Latin Gospels and translating the Old Testament. Jerome began in Rome, but soon retreated to Bethlehem to work in solitude. He made a bold choice: translate the Old Testament directly from Hebrew, not the Greek Septuagint. This was revolutionary and controversial. Great scholars of the West were already exposing him and the corrupted Greek manuscripts. Jerome especially mentions Luke 2:33, where the received text read, "And Joseph and his mother marveled at those things which were spoken of him." While Jerome's text read, "His father and his mother marveled." Most scholars trusted the Greek version, but Jerome insisted on returning to a faulty source. His work sparked debate, but he pressed on, convinced of his mission. Jerome's translation sadly would change the course of Western Christianity. Jerome's translation ignited a fierce debate between tradition and innovation. The Greek-speaking East relied on the received text, directly in line with apostolic manuscripts, a revered Greek translation of the Old Testament. Jerome's Latin Vulgate, based on Hebrew, often differed from the familiar Greek text. He omitted certain books and changed familiar passages, unsettling many. Theologians questioned whether to trust the ancient Greek or Jerome's New Latin. The differences weren't just academic, they shaped theology and faith. The Church faced a choice: uphold tradition or embrace a new, unified Latin Bible. The battle over the Bible's true text had begun. Jerome's Vulgate faced fierce resistance. Church leaders accused him of corrupting scripture. Even Augustine worried it would cause chaos. Yet the papacy saw the value in a standardized Latin Bible for unity and control. For centuries, Jerome's Vulgate coexisted with older Latin versions, often mixed together in manuscripts. Gradually, the Vulgate's clarity and authority won out, championed by scholars and monasteries. By the early Middle Ages, it became the Bible of Western Europe. The darkness had settled upon Europe. Its Latin echoed through churches, universities, and courts for 1,000 years. The Greek East kept its own traditions, but in the West, Jerome's Vulgate reigned supreme. The battle was not over. Jerome had won for a time, but a dawning of light was appearing upon the world. For a millennium, Jerome's Vulgate shaped Western civilization. It inspired theologians, poets, and artists, and was declared the official Bible at the Council of Trent. Over centuries, copying errors crept in, and scholars like Erasmus began to question its accuracy. The Protestant Reformation called for a return to the original Hebrew and Greek, sparking new translations in everyday languages. Today, modern Bibles have replaced the Vulgate, but its influence endures. The Vulgate shaped law, art, and thought, binding Western Christendom together. Studying its story reveals the roots of our culture and faith. Jerome's monumental translation remains a cornerstone of history.